Alrighty. So today I'll take you through the process of assessment writing. Just to reiterate, I am by no means an expert on writing assessments, and probably most of you probably have best practice that you may be able to share with us at some stage. So basically, we're just going to start with looking at the unit standard. The unit standard involves understanding and basically extracting some key information about what's expected in terms of knowledge and skills. So if we look at a unit standard, there's the title and purpose. So understanding the title as it describes the outcomes that someone credited with the unit standard has demonstrated they know they can do, or even both. Purpose statements, basically they're just describing a standard that is needed, including the use of relevance to the learners, employers, and even the community in a context. There's also the level. This is where the unit standard sits on the NZQA framework, and then obviously the credit value. Standard credits basically indicate the learning time learners are expected to need. This is basically to meet the standard outcomes. So 1 credit represents 10 hours of learning, practice, and assessment time. So this can be broken down into like time spent in a structured tuition and safe-paced learning and practice. It also can be a time taken to gather and provide evidence for assessment purposes, and also time taken to be assessed in all the outcomes and contexts. So each time a unit standard changes, a new version is created. Minor changes to standards may not affect outcomes. Should always probably check the assessment tasks, evidence guides, and evidence and judgment statements carefully against the new versions. This is to make sure that the material affects the standards' new requirements, or if any adjustments may be required as well. So then we have the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes related to the assessment. So they identify the specific skills, knowledge, and attributes that are expected from the learner to demonstrate, and the context in which these are assessed. To be awarded a unit standard, a learner must obviously achieve all the outcomes. Can you just change the slide? Yes, cool, thanks. Guidance information. This is to help understand the standard. Guidance information may also indicate any special assessment requirements or conditions, or include additional information that helps, the assessors and trainers. It also has definitions, which are great for the learners, and also legislation. So this could be that the assessment needs to be carried out in a workplace, or that's number 3 there, it has to be in accordance with workplace procedures. Prerequisites. So unit standards may contain some entry information. This shows the prerequisite, which basically this must be achieved before the learner can attempt the current assessment that they're doing. And then we come on to range statements. For these, you need to make sure that the same factors are considered for the assessment for each learner. They are also used to clarify evidence requirements, assessment conditions, or both. These must be taken into account within the assessment for the unit standard. We should note the placement of range statements as well. So if they're written in the guidance information that we looked at just before, in that section, the range statement applies to all the outcomes within the unit standard. If they're written immediately below the outcome statement, it applies to all the performance criteria in that outcome. If written immediately below a specific performance criteria, it actually applies to that performance criteria or PC only. So usually it's pretty clear on the unit standards what the range needs to be. The wording of the range statements can help decide what evidence that is required as well. So you do see includes or includes but not limited to, followed by list. So that list means that the evidence for all the selected items must be considered. There's also may include but not limited to. This provides suggested common occurring examples for consideration. So you consider evidence from the listed items that are on the unit standard, or may include other relevant items specific to the context. There is no set number of items that you must include when that is mentioned, but needs to be appropriate to the level and complexity of the outcome for the PC. Then the range that includes a set number of factors that must be considered from the list. So that little example there's evidence of 8 power tools is required, or 4 items of small machinery. This states the evidence to meet the outcomes. So performance criteria provide like the standard the outcomes are assessed against. So for each outcome, the performance criteria state what learners are expected to do or demonstrate, and to particularly the quality and quantity level or standard. And the lastly, we have the last date of assessment. So the unit standard can still be assessed until this date, but once the unit standard status has changed to expired, it can no longer be assessed against. So just a reminder that like unit standards need to be interpreted in normal language as such, and this takes quite a skill to be able to put it into words for the learners to be, for it to make sense as well and carry that over. Obviously, it's not beneficial to be just copied and pasted from the unit standard, because sometimes they just speak a whole different language. Ooh. Any questions? If you do have any questions, just pop them in the chat, and Lisa can. So yeah, next slide. So assessment writing is a good assessment design, aligns with learning outcomes, engages in diverse skills, and ensures fairness. So to achieve this, there's different things that need to consider, and are clearly stating to assessment purposes. And how it aligns with course objectives and unit standards. We need to ensure assessment measures what it intends to measure, so it needs to be valid as well. Reliability and consistency in results when the assessment is repeated. Avoiding bias and ensures that the learners have equal opportunities to succeed. This comes with fairness as well. So addressing bias is crucial for ensuring that the assessment accurately measures the learner's knowledge, skills, and also promoting equity as well. Authenticity is those on-job or workplace situations or practical skills, reflecting real-life tasks that are dominant in our sector. Variety, so using diverse question types to assess different skills. It's an important one is feedback, so the space and opportunity for constructive feedback to aid learning. This is manner enhancing to the learner and what they have achieved, or obviously what they need to improve on as well, which is vital when it comes to assessment. Flexibility, so considering various learning styles and accommodate students with different needs. So incorporating diverse learning styles when writing assessments. This can enhance engagement and comprehension. So the visual learners with graphs and maps, providing oral instructions or explanations for tasks, even allowing like presentations, and then there's your tactile hands-on activities. So individuals often have to have a combination of learning preferences, and offering a variety is obviously if feasible. It's not always that straightforward. That assessments are accessible and accommodating to diverse learning styles. So you're fostering more of an inclusive effective learning. We may see this shift maybe a little bit when we come towards skill standards when they become available. Hopefully this is going to enable us to have a little bit more flexibility with assessment material. And obviously there's continuous improvement. So regularly reviewing, finding and of assessment methods and based on feedback and outcomes. So a way of ensuring that you're getting the right message across. Ultimately, well-designed assessments enhance learning, measures achievement accurately, and supports learners' academic growth. So what goes into the clear assessment conditions and instructions are crucial. They provide a framework for fair and consistent assessment. So you need to ensure that instructions are clear and easily understood. Once you've established these, it is maintaining these conditions for all. It might be that, ensuring that it's clear that it's an open book assessment, or that it needs to be done within a workplace and verified. Maybe it's done online or verify observation, and that needs to be signed off. So that leads on to there's information from your unit standard also that we just went over. So ensuring that the title credits the unit standard number and generally the purpose of the unit standard for the assessment. They need to be quite consistent on all, they're also in the assessment, so it's clear what the learner's actually being assessed for, and they know as well. Learner information, so obviously you need to have their details, an area for signature, date, an honesty statement on academic integrity and consequences of plagiarism is something that a lot more people are including in their assessment material. It's really good to make it clear to the learners that what the expectations are for them to partake in the activity. Pre-checklist. This contains a checklist to ensure the learner is ready for the activity, so they understand the conditions, any special requirements, and a chance for any questions before they're starting. We really want to give the learners the best opportunity to succeed. So ensuring that they are comfortable, they know what they're about to do, all those kind of things are pretty important. And obviously an area that's important to the learner as well is in this the results area, so that this is clear for them to see, and if the student has actually achieved the unit standard, verify and assess a comment area, feedback, and an area for sign off for both parties, so that authentication is pretty important as well. So those are things that all need to be completed to make it a valid assessment. And then there's the reassessment. So if a learner is required for further evidence or verbal reassessment, there needs to be included the ability to basically record which task or question has been reassessed and authenticated by the assessor with a date, etc. Yeah, so anyone got any questions? I feel like I'm just zooming through this. Any questions? So some of the approaches for assessment. So selecting an appropriate assessment depends on the learning objectives, obviously, the level of the learner and the desired outcomes. So integrating a variety of approaches can provide a comprehensive assessment. So generally, DKO, or demonstrate knowledge of, or a theory PC is where they ask generally to identify, describe, or explain. So generally, these are questions and answers. When it comes to apply, monitor, etc., this is usually using observations or checklists, but these need to be backed up with a triangulation of evidence. So this could be like photos, videos, workplace documents, reports, even like work logs or learner diaries, things like that, just to triangulate and to see if everything matches up. For an identifier, you may look at multi-choice, but it's not really suitable for describing, obviously, or explaining, and they are appropriate for a lower level. That this needs to be considered as well. It's not an ideal assessment. These are some very basic examples. Obviously, you can always contact us with further information, or obviously NZQA website, which I will send the link out for that. And also the level descriptors. So this will have an influence over your assessment approach, and it clearly describes the different levels and the expectations for that learner, which obviously will help to reflect in the assessment and activity is. And obviously once you've written or completed the assessment material, there's the assessor and marking guide. So when these are created, there's a few things to consider that they contain as well. So obviously the alignment with the objectives or the learning outcomes. So ensuring that the marking guide aligns closely with the unit standard learning outcomes and the skills you intend to assess. Using concise and clear language is basically, to articulate expectations. So the learner should basically easily understand how their work will be assessed, and clearly define the different levels of performance for each criterion, providing us, like a subtle understanding of the expectations. We also need to include, example and judgment statements. Example answers are encouraged. It shows what evidence the learner needs to provide. This could be, as mentioned before, like a verified checklist. These can help support judgment statements, and they should reflect the expected amount of detail required from the learner. So including an example of a completed checklist is recommended as well. Basically, this gives guidance to the assessor on the level of detail expected. Judgment statements generally give the quality and quantity of evidence expected. This could include keywords or points to be included, and of course, if a range item must be covered. They should also give clear guidance to ensure that every assessor will arrive at the same outcome from the evidence provided. And ultimately, the way that they're written, it should basically mean that anyone who might not be a subject matter expert on that particular area could use a marking guide or assessor guide and would be able to assess someone. Evidence and judgments and sample answers should also be mapped against the relevant parts of the unit standard. So, for example, like showing like question 1 relates to PC 1.1. Mapping can either be incorporated into the assessment or assessment schedule, or it can be provided as a standalone matrix, having the level of performance that is expected for the learner, and the assessor will ensure. The marking guide needs to be fair and free from bias. So you just need to be mindful of sources of bias in the context of the assessment. So this refers to the presence of factors that may unfairly influence the evaluation of the student's performance, which may lead to inaccurate or unfair results. So this, might be an example of a cultural barrier or language barrier. So basically should be aware of these potential biases and take steps to minimise their impact, such as diverse examples, providing clear instructions, including potential for maybe the assessment to be sat in Te Ao Māori. These are things that we need to consider equity with assessments. So yeah, that obviously includes being able to sit the assessment and be verbally assessed as well, which is pretty important. So design the marking guide to facilitate constructive written feedback. As before, this allows, as I mentioned before, that it allows the student to understand not only their results but also the area of improvement. So incorporating some of these elements into your marking guide, you can create a tool that enhances consistency and transparency and fairness in marking and assessment. There is a guide to judgment and evidence statements that I will send out afterwards as well. So it just gives you just some ideas of what evidence and judgment statements should look like. There's like online, which may be an area that you're already doing. It seems to be a lot of ones assessments moving online as well. So basically, very, very similar principles. They remain, but you can also require some other areas also, like can they do the assessment at home without supervision? So these would be some things that you need to include in the instructions. Guidance for the learners, obviously whether it's open and closed book, if they're, if it's going to be marked immediately, or how a reassessment may be carried out, the feedback, where does that sit, and how can the learner access it? So some of these things need to be considered as well if the assessment is going to be online. And then the final step before delivery, pre-assessment moderation. So all material is required to undertake pre-assessment moderation before it can be delivered. So this will need to be sent and approved by your standard setting body. So obviously for us, it's sending it to us at Muka Tangata, and that's prior to using. And it's going to touch a little bit on skill standards because they're going to be obviously introduced over the next wee while. At this stage, we don't really know how they look for assessment design. They hopefully will be less prescriptive than unit standards. So with a focus on holistic and flexible assessing. So yeah, when they come more prevalent, and we understand how the moderation or the quality of them sits, quality assurance sits, then we will definitely have some seminars or information for people as well. But hopefully, basically the content would be pretty similar to the unit standard, but you've just got just that less prescriptive, as I mentioned before. Right, so I've zoomed through that in like half an hour. Sorry. Any other questions? I can see that Lisa's been busy. You're more than welcome to email myself, or just you could even email our moderation inbox as well, and they can be sent on to us to answer any other questions if there are any.
Wendy has a question, Michelle.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, I just wanted to check, is this still the focus when you're writing writing these assessments for each learner outcome, that you need to make sure that you've got an action verb in there, there's the content, and then there's a focus on the context as well. So I just feel that hasn't really been covered in this. So I just wondered if that's still a key part of it, the assessment writing, those focuses for the learning outcomes.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, sorry, I should have probably, I did talk. Yeah, should have actually put more and focus on there. But yes, definitely, it's a really good point. Thank you.
Maybe you could add in a slide just before you send it out, just to, I don't know,
Oh
to
yeah,
clarify.
yeah, cool. Thank you. Perfect. Maybe it would have taken me an extra like 5 minutes to present it. Thank you. Thank you for hopefully you got some useful information or tips or anything. But yeah, we'll definitely be sending out these slides and also some of those links that I showed as well. Yeah, but definitely if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email us or contact us. We're happy to answer any questions. So yeah, thanks for your time and off with a karakia. Te taua mai e ranga, te taua mai e raro, te taua mai e roto, te taua mai wahu. Ki taua ai te Māori ora, taumia, taumia, kui e, tai ki e.
Thank you.
Thank you.